On to the speaker. Thank you so much.
So I'm super excited to present today. My name is Taylor Desson. I'm a senior recruiter advocate, and I head up a engineering practice at the company I work for. The company I work for is named Vaco. We are actually a billion-dollar company across the world. And like I said, my team specifically focuses on engineering talent. And placing top engineering talent across the country. So I've been recruiting for 11 years, and everything I'm going to say today is so I've been really mulling over this topic for a bit, and I think a lot of companies need to hear this. And the title of my talk today is Manifesto and Hiring. And the three topics we're going to cover today is job description, recruiting strategy, and interviewing. And we have 20, 30 minutes today to do this presentation. Honestly, I could probably talk at like 9 hours on each topic. So we're going to fly through these today. And hopefully, after you listen to this talk, hopefully it triggers kind of some things in your brain, right? Are we doing this? Are we doing that? Have we considered this? Have we considered that? And so I'm going to kind of break down really kind of what, like I said, what a job description looks like, what it should look like, my tips and tricks that I've seen, recruiting strategy. How do you leverage? Obviously, me, I'm an agency recruiter, and we're different than obviously in-house recruiters that most companies have. And then interviewing, we're going to go over obviously deadlines, timelines, how are you interviewing, et cetera, et cetera. So really excited to present this today. And then, a little bit more about my background before I dive in, because I want to set the stage on kind of where I'm coming from. So again, 11 years of recruiting. Most recruiters flame out 2 to 3 years into it, right? So I usually say recruiting is like dog years; it exponentially ages you. So I'm actually 121 years old, and what like I said, focus on obviously engineers. I ran some quick numbers. I've met over 5,000 software developers now in my career. I have scaled teams everywhere I've been within Vaco. When I started at Vaco, we were 200 million in revenue. Now we're a billion in revenue, right? So I've every stop I've been, I've scaled teams 2x, 3x the size that it started. And also too, I've started a team from scratch, and now we're a team of seven. And we're continuing to hire, continue to scale. So I do want to preface again, I know I'm a recruiter, and I know a lot of individuals are going to watch this that are in the tech space. And I'm not trying to come across as the end all be all, but I do want to share obviously some tips and tricks that I've seen companies do and companies not do. So hopefully I can help you and your organization not make the same mistakes. So let's dive into job description. So job description is incredibly important. This is something that no one talks about. And I've become fascinated with job descriptions, especially over COVID, because job description really is the first thing that a job seeker sees about your company. Now, they could see some advertisement content on the internet. I understand that. But the job description is the single thing that could potentially endear the job seeker to your organization. So what should a job description look like? What should it not look like? So first off, when it comes to writing job descriptions, I think the majority of the industry has it wrong because it's written by HR. It's not written by the hiring manager. Now, if you're watching this, you're like, I write my job descriptions. Great. You probably already have a better engagement about getting candidates in than if HR would do it. That's the biggest thing I see is that people who don't do the job or who aren't doing the job are not writing the job descriptions, if that makes sense. So the first thing is like you need to be mindful of who is writing the job descriptions and how can that person communicate what the potential new hire is going to do. Now, the big thing with job descriptions is it's a lot of words, a lot of useless words, and no one has any idea what they're actually going to do. And so I want to dive in on kind of what I like to see in job descriptions. And in the 11 years I've been recruiting, just to put it in perspective and give yourself grace on this, in the 11 years I've been recruiting, I've only had a handful of companies that actually write good job descriptions. So the first thing the job descriptions should have is your mission statement, right? I actually had a conversation about this the other day in a Twitter space. Um, my generation, millennials under me, I think it's like Gen X and then Gen Z, like they're very, very motivated by mission. That is a proven thing. I've seen it on TikTok. I'm just kidding, but I've seen it multiple times that the younger generation of than millennials is very, very mission driven. And so I think it now more than ever, you need to make sure that your company has a mission statement on the job description. Here at XYZ, our mission is to what, right? And it needs to be very, very thought out and very specific. The next thing with the job description that I like to see is a nice to have requirement and then the must have requirements, right? So what happens, a lot of job descriptions do this crazy, crazy long job description, and there's a bunch of bullet points, and there's like, we need like literally every single technology under the sun, right? It doesn't give the job seeker any sort of information. And so what I like to see is basically a job description saying, hey, listen, to be considered for this job, you at least need X, right? 3 years of overall programming experience, at least a year of React experience, at least 6 months exposure to AWS, right? The AWS ecosystem, right? Then the next thing you write is the nice to haves, right? And what I would phrase it is what would separate you from the rest of the resumes is, or the following, right? And then you dive into things that are really, really important, right? Let's say you're using AWS Lambdas or AWS, I don't know, S3, right? Maybe that's an important feature or function within this job, right? Those are the things that need to be on there. Because what that happens is if an individual reads that job description, they get a great idea of, okay, this job's going to at least do this, and then it probably is going to do this as well. Am I going to be a fit? Right. And the biggest thing that most companies miss out on is they make their job descriptions too exclusive and not inclusive. Right. And so, again, the whole point of job descriptions is to cast a wide net. Right. You need to be able to cast a wide net and rely, and we're about to dive into kind of the next thing, recruiting strategy. Rely on your in-house recruiters, rely on your HR to go through those applicants, because the last thing you want to do is weed out weed out individuals. For example, I was just on a Twitter space again yesterday. It's so funny that I'm presenting this today, and yesterday I had a Twitter space kind of along the same lines. And the one individual who was hosting is a mom. She has 4 kids, and she said she saw a job description where they said travel 3 to 4 times a year, and she goes, "I did not submit my resume to that, because that excludes me, because I am a mom of 4 and I won't be able to get away that much." Now, I would ask that company, are you actually traveling 4 times a year, or did you just put that to try to cast, like, to exclude people so you can only get the people that can do that, when in actuality you're maybe only traveling once a year, maybe twice, right? Those are the things to be mindful of. So this company did not get this engineer's resume because of that. Now, if that company may have traveled 4 times a year, and that's fine, but the thing is, put things in your resume that are true, and don't try to exclude individuals, because that's what happens. I want to jump into the next part of kind of my manifesto in hiring, and that's recruiting strategy. Recruiting strategy both for the internal company, and then also leveraging third-party agency recruiters like myself. So first off, what does your internal recruiting team look like, and how is it structured? Right. So I've never been an internal recruiter, but I will tell you this, I've worked with a lot of teams. And the thing is I would make sure your internal recruiting team has specialties, right? Do you have 1 or 2 internal recruiters that focus on engineering talent? Do you have 1 or 2 recruiters that focus on marketing talent? Do you have a few recruiters that focus on this type of talent? Because what happens is that when recruiters can get very narrow in their skills, it allows them to learn more, and allows them to go deeper, and allows them to build relationships with candidates better, because they are better at their craft, right? And so make sure that your in-house recruiting team is very, very focused on specific lanes, because that will allow your organization to grow quicker, because your recruiters are going to know what the heck they're actually recruiting on. The next thing I would say, are you partnering with third-party recruiters like me, right? I'm an agency recruiter, third-party recruiter, right? Are you partnering with us? Yes or no? I think you do. I think you absolutely do. Listen, I'm going to separate. I'm going to say it in layman's terms, right? All agency recruiters do, all we do, literally all we do, all day, every day, is meet new people. Like, one recruiter on my team meets 15 new people a week. New people a week. So in 1 month, my one team member meets 60 people. All right, I have 4 recruiters. That's 240 new candidates we're meeting a month. Again, I've never been an in-house recruiter, but I will tell you this: every in-house recruiter I talk to, they say we do a lot of other things. We write job descriptions, we extend offers, we help resume pipelines, ATS. I mean, there's just a lot involved for in-house recruiters, where their day job is not to recruit day in, day out. So again, Are you partnering with third party recruiters? Yes or no? I would say you should, not because I am one, but because of the volume of candidates that we are meeting weekly, monthly, yearly. You want to tap into that, right? The next thing is do you go all in on third party, on one third party partner, or diversify, right? It's kind of like setting up your cloud choices within an environment, right? Do you want to go all in on AWS? What if AWS crashes, right? Then you are screwed, right? And so it's the same thing with third party recruiters. Listen, I'm a third party recruiter. I don't think you should just use us. Right now, Vaco, the company I work for, we do everything. We do accounting, finance, we do staffing, we do administrative assistance, we do marketing, we do healthcare, we do accounting, finance, we do CFOs, retained searches. We do it all at Vaco, right? Because our mission is like, hey, you don't have to go anywhere else. You can literally just use us. But I will tell you this: I would diversify. How many people? How many recruiting agencies do I recommend? No more than three. No more than three. I have not seen a company be successful with more than three recruiting agencies, because what happens after that is you start to basically basically step on each other's toes, right? Because you got to think about it. Your in-house recruiters are still going to recruit off job postings, but then your agency recruiters are going to be recruiting as well, almost the same pool of candidates, but just a wider net. So there's going to be obviously some stepping on toes. So I would diversify. I'd probably use two, no more than three. The next thing I want to talk about is, are you open to contract to hire, direct hire, and consulting projects? Now, you're probably like, Taylor, break that down for me real quick. So based off that, there are four ways to hire. There are four ways to hire: contract to hire, direct hire, consulting, right? Most companies are only consider one of those four. Well, we only want to see direct hire people, salary people. That's all we want to see. Okay. That's one of four ways to hire. There are a lot of candidates out there that only want to do contract to hire. I was literally speaking with a senior Ruby engineer. He only wants to do contract to hire. Why? He's been burned a lot recently, and he wants to know what he's getting himself into, right? There are a lot of hired guns out there that are just amazing contractors. They only want to contract. They'll contract for 6 months. They'll contract for 3 years, but they just want to contract, right? There's a lot of great engineers out there, right? And then consulting, right? Vaco, company I work for, my buddy runs our software consulting practice. It's called Vaco Built, right? So literally, if you are super behind on an entire cloud implementation project and you don't have the bandwidth and you need to literally hire like 10 people, hand it over. Hand it over, right? So that's why I'm saying, again, it's being inclusive instead of exclusive, right? That's what I'm trying to get across. And that is what you have to keep in mind when it comes to hiring across the board, from job descriptions to recruiting strategy. And we're going to get an interview in here in a second. It's all about, how am I casting the widest net possible and not rejecting people until the very end, right? Because think about it. If you reject people through the process pretty heavily and you start with 10 people and you only have one, you're putting all of your eggs in that basket. And I will tell you this, the job market is so crazy competitive right now that like that person could accept an offer somewhere and then you have to start over again. You have to start over again. You have to go through that whole entire process again, right? So that's what I'm saying. I would try to get the funnel from 10 down to 3 or 4 at the very end, and then make your decision from there, right? Keep a really, really wide net. All right, the next thing I want to talk about is, how are you tracking resumes, right? Are you using an ATS? ATS is an application tracking system. Listen, there's a ton out there. I highly recommend to implement one within your organization if you haven't already. There's Greenhouse, there's Lever, there's a ton of them out there, right? Just Google ATS and see what pops up. I like Greenhouse. I've used Greenhouse and Lever. I'm fine with both of those, but I do think you need an ATS to keep up with things. I will tell you this: do not implement an MSP though. MSP is a managed service provider. A lot of big organizations do this. Basically, they are companies that come in and kind of manage your hiring process. And it's kind of this thing. Basically, what it does is, a lot of managed service providers, their agreements like, hey, listen, like, we're not going to work you. It basically is a wall between the agency recruiters and the in-house. So a lot of times the agency recruiters can't talk to your business, and that's when we become incredibly less effective, right? Recruiting third-party recruiters like myself, we desperately need to be this type of relationship with your hiring managers in business, because you really need to treat the third-party recruiters as an extension of your company. The companies that have been incredibly successful hiring for me and my teams over the last 11 years, they do a great job of basically integrating us with their culture. There's a lot of times where we go work out of their offices, or they invite us to happy hours with their organizations, right? We've done breakfasts with dev teams before just to get to know their culture, because that's when a special relationship happens with a third party recruiter and a company. Finally, I would keep internal recruiters out of the interviews, right? So this is kind of going into my next segment, which is interviewing. The interview process needs to be directly to the hiring manager or the individuals on the team, and not recruiters doing the first conversation, right? The first conversation, the first interview of a company needs to be the hiring manager or somebody dedicated in the internal team. We're about to dive into that, because here's the deal. If you use a third party recruiting agency, listen, I'm fine with the internal recruiter having a conversation if it's they found the candidate through a job posting. But if they are getting it through a third party recruiter, we've already done the conversations. That's why you got to trust us, right? That's why you have to let us be a part of your organization, so we can pitch you, we can pitch the company, which takes away from that conversation, right? So let's dive into the last part today as we wrap up here, which is interviewing. First thing, how many steps y'all have in the interview process? I would say ideally you need 3 and no more, right? Now, a lot of people are like, Taylor, I don't necessarily agree with you. Listen, I get it. I understand, right? There's not one size fits all when it comes to interviewing. My only thing is be intentional, right? We're going to talk about that here in a second, but ideally 3 steps. We submit the third party. Again, I'm coming from the third party recruiter side. We submit a resume. You talk to them. The first hour conversation, it needs to be an hour conversation. The first 30 minutes of that conversation needs to be you, the hiring manager, selling the candidate on why you should work for the company, right? Listen, all these candidates are interviewing everywhere. You have to do something to separate yourself. Most companies on the first call grill the candidate and there's no warm and fuzzies. Listen, I'm sorry, but we got to bring the warm and fuzzies back. We have to, because candidates are in demand. Even during this time with a little recession, the R word being thrown around, you still have to make the candidate feel good, right? You have to make sure you are selling your opportunity. The second step is usually where I've seen companies succeed the best. It's an hour and a half live coding / code pairing session. No take home test. Let me repeat that. No take home test. Do it in the interview, right? You want to see how these people work anyways. It doesn't have to be an overly complicated problem, but do the code along, do the hour and a half interview live during it, because what happens is if you do the take home code test, they're not going to do it. They're just not going to do it. Like I know developers have 5 or 6 take home tests. It's just not going to happen. The third and final round, if that individual passes the coding pairing, if you need a third round, it's a quick hiring manager like CTO, VP of engineering chat, senior level engineering chat, and then you're done. The next thing I want to talk into, turnaround time, interviews, expectations. Listen, when you get it, so I'm going to outline my expectations real fast. From resume submittal from me, third party agency, to you, it's a 24 to 48 hour turnaround time to set the interview. That should be within a few business days. Then once that happens, basically you need to set either on that call with the candidate or through us that day, the second round, again, probably a few days out, like immediately. And then the third round needs to be like literally you talk to the candidate on the call with the code pairing and say, when can you interview next with our CEO, VP of engineering, CTO? And you go ahead and set that on that second call for the third round, and then you're done. Right. The next thing is how fast do you get the offer letter out? Very fast. Right. I would call them, if you want them, extend the verbal almost as fast as you feasibly can. Right. If you extend the verbal, you at least buy yourself a little time to drop the offer letter, make sure the numbers are checked out by HR. But if you're not even given a verbal, that candidate's going to move on, right? You only have 2 or 3 days after the final round to really keep that candidate engaged, for that candidate goes, all right, these folks aren't serious. I'm moving on. So what does your feedback loop look like, right? Listen, I get it. There's a lot of HR stuff out there where we're not allowed to give feedback. Listen, keep it technical and just keep it short. Keep it technical and keep it short. Don't talk about their soft skills. You're not a culture fit. Nobody knows what that means. And don't say that. That's a cop out answer. That means you're weird, right? And that's not good in and of itself either. So what I would say is I've talked to so many engineers in my career that have said this: if a candidate actually gave me specific feedback on what I need to improve on, I would be more likely to refer my friends to that company to interview. I'm not joking. I'm not joking. So again, feedback, be specific on the technical side. I understand there's some HR stuff if you talk about personality or who that person is. I get that. Keep it technical. Hey, listen, we wanted strong experience in React with these 3 things. You only met us on one, right? Keep it technical, keep it short, and I promise you're going to reap the benefits from it. All right, do you have a referral program? Listen, I would highly hook. I would implement a referral program where essentially like make sure your internal teams get paid to send their friends over, and also too, I would do a little bit of like content creator like affiliate programs in the public. Like there's a lot of people out there that know a lot of people. And there's a lot of senior devs that know a lot of people, especially on Twitter. If you hook them up with like, hey, listen, we'll hook you up with a referral fee of like, a certain amount of money every time you refer us a candidate or we place a candidate. Again, not many, no one's doing that. No one's doing that. And again, you want to keep the pipeline full. Again, we talked about this too. Are you having an inclusive interview process? Right. We've touched on that. Again, casting a wide net. You don't want to start with 10 engineers in the first round and then get to like one and then that person be gone. You want to have 3 or 4 in the final round. Do you have set people on the interview every time, or do you rotate? And do those people know what they're interviewing for? Right. So my team of 7, we have 2 people that just judge culture and like how that person work within our team. We have another 2 people that kind of dig in technically. If they're more on the recruiting side or more on the sales side, we dig in and kind of see what their aptitude is and kind of see what they know. Right. Same thing with engineering. Right. Who do you have interviewing first round? That person interviewing first round needs to be a pretty big champion of your organization that loves your organization, knows the in and outs of your organization so they can sell the organization. The second round you need to be technical, right? Those people need to be technical and very good at communicating because it's a live code along pairing assessment. Then the third round obviously needs to be specific around leadership. But what questions are you asking? Are you interviewing all the people the same? Because then interview bias comes in, right? And so that's incredibly important. Make sure you have either the same people every time, or if you rotate, make sure there's a set of questions. There's a checklist. We have a checklist on my team. We're still iterating on it, but we have a ranking scale, right? And every single candidate that we interview, we have a ranking scale that we use on different aptitude, attitude type stuff. Um, Next thing, how are you capturing notes in the interview and where is that being held? Right? Just a thought. Because here's the deal. Let's say you talk to Joe Schmo. Joe Schmo was number 2. Number 1 took the offer. Joe Schmo went on. Let's say Joe Schmo comes back in 6 months and wants to interview with you again. It probably would help if you already have the interview notes because you could fast track that person potentially to the final round. But most companies just don't take notes and they don't keep that data in house. So I would make sure that you are taking detailed notes. And this is where you upload it to the ATS. Incredibly important. Finally, as we wrap up here, pipeline. What does your pipeline look like? Are you just interviewing people if there's an open job? Are you always talking to top end engineering talent, like when they become available, right? Do you have the buy-in of the company that if you don't have a budget approved, but you come across a stud developer, can you hire that person, right? Again, the whole thing is keep it wide. Keep your interview process incredibly wide, cast the net wide, and then go more narrow, right? So if you're constantly interviewing pipeline and you're constantly keeping that pipeline healthy, right? Let's face it, y'all, as managers like myself and organizations, we kind of know when people are about to leave. Like we just know, we have a hunch, or the good ones know, right? So again, what I would tell you is always be evaluating your teams, always be interviewing for people that you think could possibly leave, right? And then even if they don't leave, great, and you still are interviewing people and have the buy-in from higher levels to make sure that if you do find a diamond in the rough, that you can hire that person quickly. Because I will tell you this, the organizations I've worked with that say, hey, you know what, we're not hiring, but send me a resume. We're not hiring, but send me resumes if you have somebody who's a great fit for organization. Those organizations usually have the best retention and best hiring strategy and get the best talent. So that's it for today. I appreciate it. Again, all these topics could go literally hours on end on how to write a good job description or recruiting strategy or interviewing, but I want to summarize it here and start getting the conversation moving in the right direction of things to be mindful of as a hiring and engineering lead within an organization and what you need to be mindful of. Again, my name is Taylor Desson. My Twitter handle is at tdesson, TDESSEYN. Obviously, actually, my social, that's what it is across the board. So find me. Again, that's TDESSEYN. And if you like this and you want to talk about hiring, you want to use me to staff up your organization, shoot me an email, Taylor, TAYLOR at vaco.com. Thanks, y'all.
Hey, thank you so much for watching that. I really hope you got value from it. By the way, if you want more where that came from, go to composability.dev and register to be a part of our community today. And if you want to be even more part of our community, go to Twitter and look up JavaScript Jam and follow us. Every Wednesday, we go live at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we talk about anything and everything web dev. It's an open mic for everybody, whether you're a beginner, whether you've been doing this forever. We love to hear from everybody, and there's always so much value and good conversation going on there. We wanted you to be a part of it too, so come join us. And by the way, if you left a comment below, that's exactly where the comments are going to be answered during the live Q&As with the speakers. JavaScript Jam live on Twitter Spaces. All right, go to JavaScript Jam.